Okay, okay. Hey, Dr. Tim here, and we finally, Dr. Steve and I fought off the gauntlet of paparazzi that's been following us all day. This is what happens when
These
you get
guys.
big and famous. Yeah. So today we're talking about the Ouch Doctor's pain journey. How'd we get here? What led us to this place right now where we're teaching people about mind-body pain relief, and how will our experiences help your healing?
It's Dr. Steve and Dr. Tim here. We are the Ouch Doctors, and we're here to talk to you about new thinking about old pain. But today, we're going to take a slightly different course of action, because today we're going to be talking about each other and ourselves and give you guys a little bit more of an understanding of who we are, how we got where we're going. Ultimately, what we want to do with this show is to really kind of engage you guys in conversation about what you could do to empower yourself to be successful, healthy, and happy. And we're having a ball doing it. So that's what we're all about. Before we get started, I just wanted to let you guys know, if you happen to be watching this on YouTube, that we'd like to encourage you to subscribe to our channel, the New Thinking About Old Pain channel. And if you're not watching us on YouTube, watch us on YouTube, because it's the best place to watch us. Nothing personal, Mr. Facebook, nothing personal, Mr. Zuckerberg, but it's a good place for you to go and find the episodes, and it's a great thing to share. And we want to build a big community over there, so please do join us over there. That'll be awesome. And because today's show is really us talking about ourselves, talking about who we are, what we do, what we're interested in, we're gonna give each of you, each of us is going to give you a one big tip. So that means two one big tips. That's interesting. Okay, so let's get going here. I guess I'm going to start by asking you, Dr. Tim, if I may, how did you get here and become a pain coach? How'd that all happen for you?
Well, it all began when I was 10 years old. And I'm going to start back then, because that was the first time that I ever had serious acute pain. And after church one day, I carried this 10-year-old kid, one of my little buddies, around on my back. We had like a picnic after church, and I carried this kid around with a piggyback all day. And it was all good, except the next day, I couldn't get out of bed. I had never had pain like that. I was only 10 years old. And I could not go to school. I couldn't move. I just cried. I couldn't go to the bathroom by myself. Could not move. And then evidently what happened is that I had kind of what's called a developmental fracture in my lower spine, called a spondylolisthesis. When we're 10 years old, we're still cartilage, especially males. And mine just kind of fractured. And so it's never, to this date, and I'm age 60 right now, it's never actually fused up. So it's been a weak spot ever since that time. But it was my first bout with extreme pain. But you know what? It went away. It healed itself. It ran its course. The pain went away. A little while later, when I was a junior high student, I was long jumping. I was very active in sports from the age of 12. I've been training as an athlete since I was 12 years old. But I remember one time I was long jumping, and my legs immediately slipped out from under me, and I fell flat on my rear end, and I fractured my coccyx bone. Really painful. I couldn't sit. I had to sit with one butt cheek up in the air for almost a year before that healed. No treatment for it or anything like that, except sitting on a donut. But again, it healed. It was severe pain. It bugged the heck out of me, but it healed up. So fast forward to actually a few years later, and I developed sciatica down. I sound like a hypochondriac, Dr. Steve. I know.
Listen to you, man. Wow.
Yeah, it's terrible. But I have a point to the madness. So I'm late teens, and I was all about being a healthcare professional. I studied everything I could about nutrition, healthcare, exercise. I wanted to work with athletes. I didn't know quite what I was going to do. So I decided, hey, I'm going to be a physical therapist, because this encompasses all the stuff that I'm interested in. So I decided, I went to Rhode Island College, did my undergrad up there, but I was running cross country and track on the team. And I made the stupid mistake of running my first 26-mile marathon when I was 16 years old. And that is too early to be running the kind of distances that I was running. And I caused myself a stress fracture in my knee, and I developed bilateral sciatica, which is compression of the big nerves that go down your butt and all the way down to your toes in each leg. And I just could not heal up from that. I went to all the pain doctors. The school sent me here, there. I was getting shot up full of cortisone left and right. This was back in the late 70s, and I was all ready to have exploratory surgery. They don't do that anymore, but they used to do that back in the 70s. They didn't have arthroscopic surgery, so they were just going to lay open my knees and look for the problem. And instead of doing that, some friends of mine in the running community said, "Hey, you got to go see a chiropractor." Well, that's the first time I ever heard of the word chiropractic. Had no idea what it was. And I went to this chiropractor, Dr. Bob Recor, and didn't know anything about it. He worked out of his house, and I laid on his table, and he gave me an adjustment on my lower back and my mid back and my neck. And he said, "Okay, go ahead out and run, and I'll call you later." I was like, "Really?" I hadn't run one step in 9 months. But that afternoon, I ran 5 miles that same day. I could not believe it. And immediately I decided to be a chiropractor, forgot about physical therapy. And I really loved practicing chiropractic, and I cared for a ton of people. I had a very successful practice. But I had 3 loves during those pivotal times, and still do, actually. My son, I have a son who's now 27 years old, 28 years old, actually. And raising him was my prime duty in life in many of those years. I loved the practice of chiropractic. I took care of hundreds of patients every week and got great results, and all referral practice. I loved that. And the third thing that I loved was climbing. I got into climbing at an early age. I started climbing with my parents. We went all over the country and hiked and camped and stuff. So I was a real outdoorsy kid. And then I got more and more into it, technical climbing. And I started to climb big mountains around the world. I climbed Mount Rainier and took a 6-day course out there in Washington State. And on that mountain, I thought, I'm going to climb a big mountain someplace in the world every year. So the next year I went to Africa and I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro the next year. And then I climbed in the Rocky Mountains, rock climbing in the Teton Range for a couple of years, and went to Yosemite for a couple of years. And then I went to Alaska and made my first attempt on Mount McKinley, nowadays known as Denali. And it didn't make it the first time, but went back a second time and made it. And then on the top of Denali, I thought, maybe, just maybe, I've got the stuff to climb Mount Everest. I wasn't sure, and I thought, I think I need to have some more expertise. I need to go to higher altitudes, and I need to test myself a little bit more. And all this is while still practicing chiropractic and still being the best father that I could be to my son. And so I went down to Argentina, and I climbed the highest mountain in the Western Hemisphere, which was called Aconcagua. And climbed that, and I was like, all right, I'm going to go to Mount Everest. And so I went to Mount Everest in 2007 for the first time and didn't make it. And I'll talk about the reasons that I didn't make it, because it was all in my head that I didn't make it. But I knew I could get to the top. I knew I could do better. So I went back in 2008, and I was lucky enough, and I'll share a picture right here, to get to the top of the world. And there's a picture from the top of Mount Everest in 2008. I was the first chiropractor to do that. And I was also the first from the state of Rhode Island to get to the top of the world. Wow. And you know what's cool, Dr. Steve, about climbing Everest is that you can have frozen snots on yourself and still be an adult. It's awesome. So anyway, so that was one of my proudest accomplishments, in addition to raising a successful child and having a busy practice. So why do I tell you about that? It's pretty cool, but a scant 3 years after this, I had to leave my practice because I couldn't walk anymore. My spine had given out. I could not bend over. So one day in 2011, late 2011, I went to my office, and before I saw my patients, I had to clear up a bunch of trash and throw it in the dumpster out in the back of the office. And I grabbed a box, and inadvertently I grabbed 2 boxes, didn't even get it off the ground. I bent over. I couldn't stand up. I barely limped upstairs. I told my staff that I was hurt, but I somehow saw all my patients that day. And leading up to that, I had kind of gotten used to faking my back pain. I would fake it with my patients because I didn't want my patients to see their doctor in pain, because that's embarrassing. But now I just couldn't even fake it anymore. So I finished out that day, and I didn't know at that particular time, but that was going to be my last day in practice. I had to retire from practice. I could not get better from that. So all the other injuries I had years past, they were, some of them were significant, but they healed up. This did not heal up. And I was lucky enough to sell my practice. And I'm standing in that office right now. I'm just downstairs at my studio, but another chiropractor sees all the patients on the floor above me. But I sat around in bed, out of bed for almost 2 years, and I had nothing but time. But I started to realize some things. I started to realize that before I got hurt, I had been under tremendous stress. I had just found out that a long-term employee of mine, she was working for me for 22 years. She was my go-to person for all that time. I trusted her implicitly. And somewhere along the line, she got pissed off at me and felt underappreciated. And she started to embezzle thousands of dollars from my practice. So there was a court case. There was a ton of stress. It wasn't so much the money for me. I was just completely let down. And everything, it was like my life had been gone up. It was like 52 card pickup. Everything was just destroyed. Everything I kind of thought I knew. At the same time, I had a long-term relationship, a romantic relationship that was breaking up. And at the very same time, because my back had been killing me a lot, I had invested $150,000 in equipment that would make it easier for my body to take care of my patients. And that company went out of business, and I lost the investment. And I don't know about you, but I don't have $150,000 to lose. And all this, I never put all this together. And another thing was, I had some renters. I rented some space out of my office, and they got into a police issue with that, which was was embarrassing business wise. And all this stuff was going on at the same time. And I never put 2 and 2 together, because you know what? I'm a tough guy.
Right.
I'm freaking macho, man. Nothing. I climb Mount Everest. How could I have anything but just put this right out of my mind? I pushed everything out of my mind, and I landed on the idea that that I was damaged. My spine was damaged. And yeah, I've got stenosis. I've got herniated discs. I've got degenerative disc disease. My x-rays and my MRIs look horrible. And so I was all about that. But then I started to realize after being flat on my back for 2 years, that wasn't it. I had tremendous psychological stress that was going on at that time. My mind was trying to protect me. I'm convinced of it. And that's why my body gave out. And I'm here where that is. And so what happened is I started to study everybody that I could study. I studied Dr. John Sarno, who's kind of like the pioneer of mind-body, especially spine work. His book, Healing Back Pain, is still helps people to this day. And nobody respected Dr. Sarno. His colleagues did not respect him. They thought he was a quack. But you know what? I'm convinced, and with Dr. Steves and I work right now, that some of his work is just going to be so much more well-known. And we kind of have a more modern twist, let's say, on Dr. Sarno's work. But I studied everybody that I could study on this mind-body stuff. And you know what? I'm doing great. I'm not climbing Mount Everest, but I'm doing all kinds of awesome stuff, whatever I want to do. I know how to handle my physical deformities, and the way that I do that I can separate the mental component, the stress component. I've learned to do that. And that's why I'm so driven to share what I've learned, to share what I've studied, to share what we've put together on paper and intellectual property that I'm convinced that we can help so many people. And I'm so excited to combine efforts with Dr. Steve and share what we've learned and really change the world, change the whole paradigm of healthcare out there, away from drugs and surgery and stuff like that, and towards a more healthy, almost like do-it-yourself, mind-body, pain relief lifestyle. So I don't know how many minutes I just went, Dr. Steve. But
I don't care. That was amazing. Wow. Yeah. Wow, guys. I hope that you all really appreciate it. I mean, this is where the power is, to hear the story and to realize that this comes from true knowledge and true experience. This is not just a theoretical thing. You yourself have lived it. And some of the things you've done that are so impressive, climbing all those mountains, climbing Everest, etc. And then it's so interesting when I think about the ways in which the thing that finally lays us low could be something as simple as trying to pick up a couple boxes after you've been up and down the mountains. But that's what happens. It's the additive effect. And then the way we treat ourselves in response to it. And like you said, the emotional stress. And by the way, I've got some parallels in my story too. So this is really fascinating to me.
So I am dying to hear it, Steve. I mean,
I'm not done with you yet, my friend.
Okay.
And I don't even care if we, perhaps put me off to another day or something. I just want to keep on going here. I mean, first of all, you've had some amazing successes along the way for yourself. What do you consider your biggest? Would that be Everest, or is there something else that you would consider your biggest success?
Well, I think there's just different categories of it. Certainly from an outside interest standpoint, yeah, being a sponsored mountaineer, I had companies that sponsored me. It's a very expensive thing to do. So I had, Verizon was a big sponsor of mine. I raised funds for a local nonprofit called the Impossible Dream, and it was really a good partnership. And the Verizon partnership was awesome, and a lot of other smaller companies supported me monetarily. It was super awesome. I learned so much, and that was my first book, Lessons from Everest, which were the 7 big ticket items that I'd learned that are applicable to everybody's life. Super fantastic.
Is that book available? Could people buy that book on Amazon? Or?
Yeah, you can get that book on Amazon. Absolutely. It's still available there. Super awesome. And people I have people that just kind of open it randomly after they've read it already. And it's almost like fate. They open up at the page where they need to be. So it's one of those kind of books. So there's a lot of stuff in there, all with climbing, failing and succeeding as the metaphor for life.
And that brings up the second question, which is, what do you consider your biggest failure?
Well, I consider nothing a failure. I look at my entire life as a series of successes and failures. And if it wasn't for failing, for example, on Mount Everest the first time and having that experience, I never would have gone back the next year and summited it. It was a tremendous time of self-doubt after failing then. And I had spent so much money, and I had all these, the sponsors, the corporate sponsors. I was like, oh my God, what are my corporate sponsors going to think? I failed. I didn't do it. Well, I put all that aside and realized that I needed some other work. One of the big ticket items that I learned on the first, the failure year, if you will, I could not visualize myself on the summit of Everest. I could not see myself on the summit. So my visualization did not work at all. So the next year, while I was training, because you can only climb Everest once a year because of the weather. The weather clears between 4 and 10 days every May. And so you have to leave in March and acclimatize your body and get ready for that weather window. So for the whole year, I studied every sports psychology book that I possibly could. And all those books came down to one word. And that one word is visualization. So I worked through all that. I hung pictures on all my bulletin boards next to my office and at home, and I visualized myself at the top. But the important thing was not to see myself at the top, because you're only halfway there at the summit, and most deaths on
Right.
Everest happen from people who get on the top and die on the way down. That wasn't going to be me. So my visualization was summit and safe return. I wanted to get to the top and safely walk into base camp with all my fingers and toes and a pulse. That was my visualization. So, and I nailed that, because the next year, even though it's never easy and never know how it's going to work out, but I nailed that visualization, and I was convinced I was going to do my best that I could. And there's a million things that can get in the way, and there was no guarantee I was going to get to the summit the next year, but I was lucky enough to get to the top and down safely. And it was a huge, huge thing. And I love the people of Nepal. I love my Sherpa friends over there. I've gone back 2 times since. One, I took my son out of his senior year of high school, and we did a senior project by raising funds for a Nepali girls' school over there. So we went over there and hiked to base camp. And then I went back by myself in 2017 and hiked to base camp. If it wasn't for COVID, I would be going back in 2021 to visit friends. And it's a very spiritual place, and the people are super nice. It's super safe. So maybe I can drag you over there, Steve, sometime.
It's never really been my dream to do that, but we'll see how you change me over the course of our time together.
Right, and not climbing, because there's a difference between climbing and trekking in Nepal. I'm just talking about the trekking in Nepal, but not climbing.
Okay. Well, that you might be able to convince me to do that. I'll tell you what, it's such a fascinating story, and I think anybody watching this would do well to maybe pick up a copy of the book. I mean, I know I want to read it now, because not just the story of the climb, but the things that you learn from it. That's really fascinating to me. That's really powerful stuff. Now, my buddy here, Matthew, is saying he's going to go. So we already have a team now.
Well, we have a team. We have Team Ouch. We have Team Ouch Doctors.
There you go. And that'll be fun. Matthew would be a good climbing partner too, for sure. Right. This is great. I think, Dr. Tim, what I think I want to do is make an executive decision now and say, we just did about the length of our typical show. And I know it's hard to believe, but it's such a fascinating story. Oh, look at that. Matthew says that he climbed Kilimanjaro in 2014.
Awesome. Well, I climbed it in 1999 and loved it. I'd love to go back there again.
Yeah. I hear it's beautiful.
It's fantastic. And the coolest thing about climbing around the world is that you go where the tour buses don't go.
Right.
I've got plenty of time for tour buses when I'm 82. So right now I'm going to just, go to these cool places and hang out with the locals. And, that's what I find most cool about that.
Somebody told me they saw a car that had a bumper sticker that said, this car climbed Mount Everest.
Oh, that's good. I need that.
I know you need that bumper sticker, right? That's funny. Hey, Dr. Tim, do you have one big tip for today?
I do. And this kind of leads into Monday's episode is going to be, I guess I can take my sunglasses off.
Maybe Tuesday.
I see no paparazzi anywhere right now in my mansion.
Exactly. But this may be Tuesday's episode, because we may have my...
All right. We're going to do you on Monday, but okay.
Yeah.
But my one big thing is that is the idea that motion of your body is lotion for your joints. So motion is lotion. So what I want you to do is to realize that that motion, you've got to increase your motion, because it's not only a healthy aspect for your body, but there's a mind-body connection to exercising more. So I want you to think about what's your TV20. Now, the TV20 I define in my second book, Feet, Fork, and Fun, which you can also get on Amazon. But the TV20, for an hour of TV, network TV, there's about 20 minutes of commercials in that. I don't know about you, but I don't care one whit about Dove soap as a commercial. So in that 20 minutes, if you're going to watch the local news and the national news, then there's 20 minutes of time where you can get on the floor and you can stretch and you can do some crunches and you can do some planks and you can do some push-ups and you can do some lunges, you can do all that stuff. So my one big thing is write down the things you could do in the TV20, the possible things you can do. Jog in place, do some dumbbell work. How can you use that 20 minutes of TV to really move your body and get healthier and de-stress the mind? So that's my one big thing for the day. And that'll lead to Tuesday's talk.
That's outstanding. You've got me thinking right now about, what would I do because those little minutes add up, right?
TV20, man, unless you want to stare like a zombie at a bunch of commercials, which is just like mind candy to sell you stuff, then work your body, make it visit. And then that's going to give you so much confidence in your body. And it's just going to be neuroplastic rewiring, get rid of the pain, and let's get more to a state of fitness and grace as a result. That's the TV20.
So in the next couple of days, we'll go a little deeper into this motion as lotion concept, and we'll have a whole show dedicated to that, talking more about some strategies that you can employ. But this is a great one, and thank you so much for that. I just want to reiterate one more time about our Freedom from Pain Kit. And if you're interested in grabbing that complimentary Freedom from Pain Kit, just go to theouchdoctors.com and grab it. It's awesome. You'll have a 14-day challenge to help you move through your pain and stay pain-free. So grab a hold of that while you can. And I think that's all we're going to do for today. So let's end the show by saying, train your brain.
Lose your pain.
Take care, guys.